huge like networker. Everyone knew her as like the matriarch of entrepreneurship. She was like, Brooke, I'm in this huge transition where everyone thinks that everything's going incredibly well, but I'm actually miserably rich.
Here I am. This is me and all my greatness and all my not so greatness.
That story is so powerful because it puts it in perspective. Please do not work for the 10 minutes you're on the summit, because that's all it's going to be.
For Everest, I was on the side of the mountain for a few weeks. We got to the top, we came back down. I'm like, I am so glad I enjoyed the entire pursuit. All right, friends, today I have my friend Brooke Casanovas on the podcast. She has created the amazing mastermind called The Last Mastermind. And I'm quite confident it is the last mastermind that you would ever need to go to. And she hosts a podcast called After Success, where she shares stories of people who have had significant success and what they do afterwards to live a life of fullness and freedom and happiness and all the things that we're looking to seek. So listen into our conversation as you meet this amazing human, and she shares her story, her journey, and her pursuit to provide an environment for all of us to succeed. All right, friends, today on the podcast, I have my friend Brooke Casanovas. I am so excited about this podcast because when you meet somebody and you just vibe, like you just can't wait to get your hands on them and like say, hi. So this is Brooke.
The feeling is extremely mutual. I have said every day since to my husband, I have a righteous, obsessive compulsion towards Jenn Drummond, and I'm so excited to be in her presence.
I know. I love it. It's so good. Okay, so the fun thing is that we're both in Utah.
Yeah, it's great.
I know. Where did you grow up in Utah?
Yeah, so my family is like west of Ogden, but then when I went to school in Provo, and I just loved being so close to the mountains, so close to nature. I loved the community. I love the entrepreneurial space, the startups that start here. I love the innovation. So it's been hard to get me out, but it's been amazing.
I know. It's all the things go on over there. I love it.
And the colors right now, aren't they amazing? Especially where you're at. The fall colors are coming out, everyone. Come on over and join us because they're just glorious.
Yes. And we can take you on massive, amazing hikes that are going to be so much fun. So come join us because we love to share nature with people that we love.
We do.
Yes. Okay. So you've always been in Utah.
Mm-hmm. I have.
How'd you meet your husband?
So we met on a dating app. He's actually from Quebec, Canada, so very different than Utah. And he wanted to secure a date before he came to school in Provo. So he was like, let's get on the dating apps. Let's look at the people that are in Provo. And we met there and we FaceTimed for about like 2 months before he came. And then we met each other, dated for a little over a year, and then got married. And he is just the most romantic little human being you've ever met. Like when you think of like, I always tell people I can't take him to the grocery store because if there's like 55-year-old or older women, the minute they learn his name is Casanova, they're like, can I go grocery shopping with you? And then the minute the French accent comes out, they're like, listen, I think he's mine. And I'm like, listen, I don't think he is.
I took him. Thank you, but he's taken. Oh my God, that's the cutest. So how many languages does he speak?
He speaks French and English, so just two, but it's so funny because he's been having some night terrors during his sleep some of the times, and whenever he dreams in French, it's hilarious hearing him swear in French because all of the French swear words are like religious verbs, and so it'll be like tabernacle or like and it'll be like tabernacle, and it'll be like swearing in French, and it's so funny. It's so funny. But yeah, we just love the French language. Trying to learn it, it's really slow coming, you know?
I can't even imagine. Does he want to stay here, or will you guys ever go back to Quebec for a while?
No, he loves the US because he loves the patriotism here. Like they just don't have it like it is here. So he loves like the red, white, and blue. He's obsessed with it. So he wants to stay in the US, but we will be outside of Utah for sure for any of his work or any of the work that I do. So it's going to be fun.
Okay. Okay. So let's get into the work that you do. But let's first start with how you got into the work that you do.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that a loaded question?
It is. It is. But we all get weaved into our spot eventually.
Yeah, eventually. And that's the grace of it all. That's so beautiful. So 30,000 foot view. And I tell this story different every time. So I like to see how it like evolves because rewriting your past is something that I'm like so intent on. And so the new rewritten story, I would say, is that I've always been a lover of environments. Maybe it's because I'm an empath. So I really read people and I read and feel energy very, very quickly and very strongly. So because of that, I was going to go into therapy and then I decided against therapy, was working in an organization where it was on like leadership and culture and employee performance. So I did my master's in organizational leadership with an emphasis in emotional intelligence and was just all about improving culture within organizations. Rooms of in terms of his tactics that he taught, but what he wasn't the best at is an abundance mindset. And so because of that and because of my own fears and insecurities that I was projecting onto him, what ended up happening is all of my peers inside of this mastermind started to come to me and be like, hey, can you help me with this? Hey, can you help me with that? Anyone, including myself, would be like, I love that my community is adding value to each other. But him, it was like a threat and a competition. So I ended up getting lawsuit papers given to me by my own coach after investing about 100,000 in him. And it scared me. And because I was so scared, I went into hiding and I just was like, my number one motto will be I'll be the face behind closed doors on any company so no one will know anything about me and I won't have to get any of the credit, good or bad, for anything that I do. So I'd go in. Entrepreneur, something that I would never would have expected. She was like, Brooke, I'm in this huge transition where everyone thinks that everything's going incredibly well, but I'm actually miserably rich. I was like, tell me what that feels like. And she was like, well, it feels empty. It feels hollow. I've lost my tribe. I don't know who I am and I don't know what my purpose is or my values anymore. Like I was so ingrained in the business and chasing after success that I lost myself to it. And then I found out on the other side, it's not even what I want. And I was like, I just held that space for her. And I was just like, wow. And she was like, I'm just wondering if you can, like, I don't know what it would look like, but can you help me? And, at that moment, I was like, there's obviously some frameworks I can come up with and some ideas that I have. But at this time, I just think it's appropriate for me to just hold space for the healing that you need and for the listening ear that you haven't been given. And, but then it also taught me after I left that lunch, I was like, that is my avatar. I love her. I love her because she has a skill set that did big things, but she doesn't have an ego that's no longer running her life. And the only reason I never went into masterminds is not only because of the hiding that I did, but because I felt like every time I would get into momentum of like attracting a business with customers, I'd outgrow them so fast. And I can tell you right now that anytime I am out of my zone of genius, it's when I'm working with people that I'm smarter than. I love honoring being the dumbest person in the room. It's when I get into my flow state. Like that is when I'm at my genius. And I had just like outgrown the people, and not from like an ego standpoint, but just from like just kept outgrowing this avatar that I was trying to serve. So then I was like, okay, what if I created like this mastermind where like it was just a bunch of go-givers that had done really big things with really big skill sets, that maybe they have a tribe, maybe they don't, maybe they're in transition, maybe they're not. But what it's about is about the service coming from the heart. And that led me to creating what is my last mastermind, is what it's called. And I just wanted it to be a safe space of what I call poised people. They're not proving, they're not posturing, they're not peacocking. They have a specific skill set, they serve at a high level, and it's not about them. And the magic and the synergy that happens in rooms like that is like, I don't even know how to describe it in the English language, but what I can say is it's beautiful. So that's where we're at.
Oh, I love this. It's so good. Now, the lady that took you out to lunch that said, "Hey, I need to be seen," right? I mean, essentially, I think all of us have this avatar that we live in and this role that we play that we forget we're the human behind the doing.
Oh, isn't that beautiful what you just said? The human behind the doing. Yeah.
Hmm. Right? It's just that we're human beings, but we sometimes get lost in the human doing aspect of our lives, and learning how to get back to that human being, which is vulnerable, right? Which is that's it. Here I am. This is me and all my greatness and all my not so greatness. And that's the human experience.
Yeah. Well, and I think that one thing that I saw, Jen, that was so interesting to me is I was like, if I were to put these in tiers in the transformation that I went through, because we always attract who we are, right? So, like, the people that were coming into my world were a direct reflection of my own energy, frequency, and vibration. So, I was like, let's go through the past decade of your entrepreneurship and let's label who were the people that were showing up in your world, because that will give you a direct indicator of who you were and who you've outgrown or who you've become through the process, because I wanted to honor that. Some I wanted to also create a lot of funerals for myself of like who needed to die, and who needed to come alive. And so can do what I am meant to do and what I want to do. was like, okay, so now that I've proved that I can do it, I did it. But now everyone else needs to know about it. Everyone else needs to know what I've done, the accolades I've gotten, the resume, the elevator pitch I practiced 15,000 times, and people will know what I did and how awesome I am. That's exhausting. Being around those types of people is so exhausting because you think it's coming from an abundant state because of who they are and quote unquote what they've done, but it's they were rich and like just flashy, flashy, flashy and trying to prove everything. And so I was like, I came to this crisis of like, who do I believe? But there are people that are poised, that are incredibly wealthy, and wealthy or not, they are contributors to just society at large, and they want to give back in meaningful ways. So that was a long explanation, but it's been a journey to get here, and what a beautiful journey that I'm so grateful for, that I would never trade. But going back to my gift of environments, like now I can create the environment because the environment in me is comfortable. So the external environment is that much more beautiful.
Oh, definitely. I do believe in set and setting, right? So I just held a retreat this weekend, and the setting is the environment that you're hosting the retreat in, right? What is that trigger? So we were in the middle of Oakley, Utah. You could
Externally in their world and in your world too. But there's not a lot of that. And so when I meet people like a Jen Drummond that are doing that work with other people, I'm like, this is so significant. This is so significant.
It is. I mean, we did the retreat was Friday night, Friday afternoon. They left Sunday morning, and we didn't leave the retreat before we booked the next one because everybody just, you don't know. You don't know what you're missing until you actually take a minute to breathe and pause and realize these micro resets have macro potential.
Results. Yeah. Oh, isn't it so true? I love how you said that the micro resets lead to just macro results. It's so, so, so true. I can attest to that, which is why I love doing the same thing and curating the type of environments with the right types of people in one room. There's so much magic that can take place with that. So much magic.
And you named yours the last mastermind. So why the last mastermind?
Um, because I think that it was my own personal journey. It was a I have been to over 100 masterminds, either as a speaker, an attendee, or facilitator. And my question behind every mastermind was like, what is my life's work? And what would my ultimate mastermind look like if I were to do it? So whether that's someone of my attendees' last mastermind that they go to because it's that good, I don't care. But for me, it's the last one that I will curate because it is the pinnacle of what I feel like is my life's work, and also the pinnacle of, not that there's not any more room for growth, there's always room for growth, but the poised people that are now coming through my doors are the people I never want to leave and the people I'll never outgrow. So it's more a phrase for me than it is for anyone, as a reminder of like, don't leave this space. Don't leave the calm. Don't leave the peace. Don't leave the slowness. Don't leave the inner work. Don't leave the people that are doing the real work that means the most. So it's just a reminder to me to like, I was just such in the chasing energy. I was in always in a rush, always trying to prove the next thing, get the next dollar. And I'm not saying that money is bad. In fact, I love money altogether. Like, I am a huge, huge advocate of like wanting to get rich to bless the human family. But I also think that when it's all about that, everything is empty. Everything's empty. And there's not like a after story to the dollars. So yeah, the name just means a lot to me because of the history that it tells of what I've tried to overcome and the people that I'm trying to invite into my world to not be invited to the next cocktail party, but invited to like a real space of transformation and networking and change.
And what have you found in your retreat has been the key to that happening for people that attend?
Yeah. There's a couple of things. The first thing, and there's a few things I might debunk here that are really interesting, but the first thing is, I in order for magic to take place, everyone needs to see each other as equals. Like, there's no hierarchy of categorization. There's no better, less than, or worse. It's just everyone is at the same playing field. And so, in order to make that happen, I think it's really interesting that some masterminds are set up where you have speakers, and the purpose for speakers, depending on the intent of the mastermind. I mean, I've had speakers come into my mastermind, but like, I try to actually eliminate all speaking if I can, because the speaking by nature is saying, I'm an expert and I'm going to teach you what you don't know. And in my case, I'm like, I want everyone to be the expert because they are, and they have a specific skill set. And there ain't no energy being moved by listening to someone in a seat for 3 hours. I'm sorry. But every mastermind that I've been to, you sit in the back corner, you listen to a speaker for 3 or 4 hours, or multiple speakers. No energy is being changed or moved physically by just sitting there. You're crazy if you think it will. But actual learning and transformation actually happens when active learning is being engaged in. And so, how I create that by happening is I facilitate very intentional activities like the first day. And the objectives are clearly like, break the walls down, create the vulnerability, invite the playfulness, and create the intention behind what everyone wants to happen. And let's make it happen. And then you see day 2 and day 3, organic things start to take place. And they're organic things that you could have never planned for. I call it like flexibility within the structure. Magic happens when there is flexibility within a given structure. Like, again, how many events do you go to and like every hour is planned out? And it's like, but what about what happens at minute 59 when like so and so says something and it shifts the energy of the room and changes, and everyone wants to go there and everyone wants to do that, but like, you've got an agenda. How do you adapt? How do you intuitively pivot in order to meet the needs of your people? So, although I do have some activities, I like to create activities that are very intentional at the first, and then they get looser and looser by day 2 and 3. So the intuitive magic that you could have never planned for happens by the end.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And how do you pick your locations? Because your next one's in Florida, right? And why Florida?
Um, Mostly because I need sun a lot of the time, and I love me some good sun. But 2, I had a couple of really cool connections that were already gonna be in Orlando, and I was like, "Okay, I've gotta make it, like, geographically in a place that would be super easy for them to meet up." So that was the second reason. But I like to do them, like I've done them in various places, but my next one is actually going to be in the beautiful Park City because I don't wanna travel for my next one, so I can't wait for that one, but yeah, Florida is it's gonna be good sunshine, and sometimes I just need that, and the location for some of the attendees was just made it convenient for them.
No, I like that. I like that. And I like that you move them and you allow them to ship. Do you have a lot of people that come to the same ones then? Do you kind of have the same group that moves through, or is it a lot of different participants every time?
Yes and no. So it depends on the needs. So I have like an onboarding form that I fill out for all of my attendees. That's like, what are your 3 things that like are your intention for needing to happen at this mastermind? And what do you want to walk away with? And then I have an offboarding. So it all depends on the participants' needs and if they want to go to a very similar vibe or if they want like a different network. So I try to everything that's planned for the participant is with great intention especially in terms of the people. If they want like the same experience, I'll plug them into the same people and keep that group the same. If they want a different one, I'll plug them into a different network.
Okay. And how do you keep the community connected in between events?
Yeah, so there's actually 2 things. The first one that I do is I don't think it's about the entire community being connected at large. If they want to do that, that's great. But what I found is people at this level with the type of like synergy and the currency that they honor the most, which is time and attention. Like their currency that they're like, I can't buy back and and that's why I honor what I do in the 3 days because it's like they're giving their most valued currency, which is their attention. So, like, others might be like, we're going to meet up over Zoom every month after the mastermind is over. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, the energy isn't moving though. If I have like 25 of you on a Zoom call, like there's not going to be much energy that's moving with only one person speaking while the rest of you listen. So what is it that will actually move the needle for you? So what I found is during the mastermind, there's at least 4 or 5 key connections that need to happen with the people there. Those you are responsible, and I check in on those on like what magic needs to curate after the mastermind with those 4 or 5 players. Or maybe it's just one. Like, but there's going to be one domino person, I call it domino in a decade, that will change the trajectory of the next 10 years of your life if you let it. What's happening in between the October mastermind and the April mastermind with that person to make sure that your magic and your intention unfolds. So that's the first one is just following up with my participants on like who did you connect with and what's happening it. And then the second one is people. Like my people love people. So I'm always thinking, how can I use my genius of being a super connector to refer them to 2 other people that they need to know that were outside of the mastermind or in a different one that I've hosted and connect them and introduce them. And I do 2 of those every single month for each participant. So they get one, the objective of, okay, I'm going to take the one magical relationship or the 4 and make sure that we're doing the right work together for the next decade to change in our lives. And then 2, who are the new people that I need to be introduced to through Brooke. And I just like text them and send them the contact information, introduce them, and then the magic then follows. But that's what I like to do because time is such a currency. I don't like to just waste time just to like gather. And quite frankly, for this group, it's not necessarily what they want.
Right. They want intention with everything they're doing.
Yeah. And they want expansion and network and people that are like them. And so it's just my gift to be able to connect them to that. So yeah, it's so fun.
Are you finding people all over the world, or do you find them more in certain pockets because they kind of connect and interact?
All over, and that's what makes it so fun. So I have two well, I have like 5 qualifiers of who I like, but like there's 2 people that I really, really love. The first one is I love the person that's in the industry that no one else is in, because I love gathering people in different industries to create and apply different frameworks across the board. You get the same industry, you're going to get the same frameworks, and then groupthink happens and innovation is dead. So I love cross pollinating like industries. So you have anything from like retired athletes to like wealth managers to or religion. I just love different so that people can go from like tunnel vision to just widening and opening up their space and the way that they operate just for a different frame of reference. So they're going to be, I have some Canadians, I have some coming all the way from like Australia, Belgium, all over the US, you know, and it's just like, it really is so, so much fun.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things about climbing the 7 second summits is being an American, you're the minority. In anywhere, every continent I went to, I was with different people from different countries, from different ways of doing life and all that things. And so then you sit there and you celebrate their cultural norms, or you share your cultural norms, or then you come home. I'll never forget, I was climbing in Nepal, and I had just finished Halloween and we were getting into Thanksgiving. And my mom is a beautiful interior designer, which means I have pillows for every holiday. I have glasses and drinkware and decorations and all this kind of stuff. And you go into Nepal and you would have no idea if it was July, August, Thanksgiving, Valentine's Day, birthday, like nothing, right? Everything's the same. And so I'm sitting there thinking, oh, this is so beautiful. You're spending all this time connecting with each other instead of all the time that I'm doing of unboxing things and reboxing things and labeling things. And do we have the right holiday pillows out? And what storage unit is this holiday pillow in? And all the things that I came back and I'm like, we are not doing holiday pillows. We're not, you know, and I have little kids, so the kids love the holiday stuff, but it's amazing how commercialized we are when you step outside the United States. And you just forget it because it's your norm. And so then I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just to be able to look at it from a, oh, this is a choice I'm making instead of this is required, right? It allows you to show up or allows you to handle the things differently.
So I have a question for you. Did your experience of being intentionally around different people, different cultures, different backgrounds, was your openness to like new people and different people being amazing instead of different being wrong? Were you brought up that way, or was that cultivated through your summits?
I don't know. I don't think we were just that exposed growing up. I mean, I was a middle class family, so I don't think we had a ton of exposure. I do remember being like somewhere, and I don't remember what climb, but they were driving on the wrong side of the road. And just that word, how about they're driving on the opposite side of the road? It's not wrong, right? It's not the wrong side of the road. It's the opposite side of the road. And just little tiny things that we language when we're interacting with other people, catching that in ourselves and then allowing something to be other instead of wrong is so powerful.
I love that. You're so smart. I love that. It's so, so good. I love that example too. It's so, so good.
It's just so simple. And so I've been, and we've spent time in those places to just learn and see and absorb. And there's so much beauty and so many ways of doing life.
Mm. And yeah, I love your comment on how commercialized we have become. It's crazy. I've always said that like one of the biggest compliments I can get from any of my friends is that my life is boring. And not because like I don't live a party, like I love a good party. I love a good gathering. But when I was in the chasing area, my schedule was so packed that I had to schedule in bathroom breaks. And it was because of like what the intention was behind the chase. And there was no time and there was no spontaneity and there was no innovation. Like everything was so structured. I was so in my masculine.
Yeah. Well, it's so easy to be in our masculine in these environments, right? Like it's learning how to, I mean, it's an effort to stay feminine and still achieve.
But the people that do it, like yourself, I'm just like, this is who I want to be around because it's so beautiful when you can embrace that and balance that and still honor your masculine. I am always going to be, no matter how many people try to change me, if they did, I will always be the driven, ambitious woman that I am. Like that is just part of my soul, part of my DNA. But like that doesn't mean that I can't and like introduce and nurture and cultivate the spontaneous, the creative, the adaptive side of me that hasn't always been as paid attention to, which is why I started yoga, which is amazing.
Ah, I love it. That's awesome. Yeah. So we did a big weekend of breath work, right? And so we just did these different breath work sessions and the emotional release that happened for individuals in breath work, which is just doing a different pace and slowing down and listening to the music. You're like, wow, we're in the hurry to where? We're trying to get where, what? Right? I mean, I'm even having the pressure right now from, I have a book coming out in January, and with that book coming out, they're like, here's how many pre-sales you need, and here's what needs to happen, and da 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 da. And here's how many podcasts you should be on, and all this kind of stuff. And so originally I bought the Kool-Aid. I'm like, okay, they know the industry. I'm gonna follow them. And if they say I should do 7 things, then I'm gonna do 8 because I'm an overachiever. And if 7's good, 8 has to be better. And then I stepped away and I started evaluating my calendar. So I looked at my calendar over the last month and I'm like, man, I really wasn't the happiest I've been. I was busier than I ever like it just giving yourself that chance to reflect and say no. 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 And allowing it to look different and allowing your success to not be pressurized to happen so fast.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. What are we in a hurry for? I love that question. And in fact, I can't wait to talk with you offline. I told Jen about a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And he talks all about that. Like, where are we in a hurry to and for what? And there's just an invitation to have more white space in our calendar and more simplicity in our lives. There's always an invitation for all of us to have that. And I think it's amazing the trajectory of your life that changes when you put more white space in. That white space is the biggest thing that will have like the doors that swing open wider than if you would have scheduled what you think are the most impactful.
Of living in Park City. We're in an adult playground. So we get to meet people in their playground and meet them in a different type of environment, which allows all of us to have our guard down, which allows all of us to just be human and then navigate from there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And it's not as masculine, going back to our discussion, because the feminine is like, the universe will have my back and will give me more than I'm even asking for if I just go with the flow. And that doesn't mean that nothing's structured in your life, but when you allow for the flexibility inside of the structure, I call it, and just do things because that's what you want to do and that's what you feel like doing. And it's not a have to, it's a get to. You'd be amazed at how much more unfolds in your life and how many more opportunities that come had you pre-planned them for years and it taken a decade versus you just let it happen and you be in the flow, the feminine, and then the opportunity comes better than you could have ever expected.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so you have a podcast. Let's talk about your podcast.
Okay, what do you want to know?
Well, the people you interview, why you did it, all that kind of stuff. Because yours is, well, I want you to explain it from your point of view versus mine.
Oh, well, I want to hear yours. Reached it. Your leather couches and that your Lamborghini and your shiny Rolex watch and all of this are just like not enough. And there's no compassion or empathy being held for these people that are still human. And I was just like, I wonder if I did like just a podcast where I interviewed these people about their experiences and then offline if there's an opportunity where they don't have a space and they're holding space for everyone but no one's holding space for them, if I can offer that service. And so it was mostly just to learn, like, what are the patterns and why are people defining success and what are they defining it as and how can we help them and who can I connect them to and how can we make the world better by listening to these people just as much as we're listening to the ones that are quote unquote suffering.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what would you see as the theme that you typically find with people that have had success? Like, what are they looking for next?
Yeah. Well, the theme that I found most interesting is that they're trying to replace the emptiness with meaning. So they're they're all about the contribution and the meaning in their life, but there's not a lot of people that are either taking them seriously or they're taking themselves seriously in their next act. And so it's just an unsafe conversation to have. It's very unsafe. And so I think that I'm not surprised that most of the people that I've interviewed that have had incredible success hit it and then go, that was it. That's literally the same phrase that I hear from all of them. That's it. That was it. And I think I just want to debunk for the younger generation not to chase or climb up the wrong ladder so that you're not unsatisfied and you enjoy the journey just as much as you do the outcome. Because it's hard when you get into your 50s or 60s and then you realize that was it and that's all I worked for and those were all my values were consumed up in, and now I really know what it looks like to live and be alive.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember climbing Everest and getting to the top. And we were on the top of Everest for 10 minutes because it wasn't safer to be Yeah. So I remember being up there and I'm like, man, if I spent the last year, and I'm lucky because I was already in shape. So I spent a year training for Everest. I was on the side of the mountain for a few weeks. We got to the top, we came back down. I'm like, I am so glad I enjoyed the entire pursuit, all the pieces that led up to the summit, because if anything that Everest taught me is that you do not climb for the summit. You do not build a business for the success at the top, right? It is all the little things that have happened, all the setbacks that defined you, all the things that you overcame and who you became, and the pursuit that gives the meaning to the entire journey. And I'm so glad Everest happened in the order it did because I used it as training ground for K2. And so when I went to K2 and I had a teammate die in an avalanche, and I was asked, do you want to continue up the mountain with us? Because we're going up and your team's going down. I could say wholeheartedly, I'm going down with my team. Who we are as people is so much more important than what we achieve. And the mountain will always be there. I can come back and get it at any time. But what I don't get to come back is being a good human. And so I'm going down to take care of my team and I'll come back another year. And I think it's these experiences that we have that allow us to remind ourselves it's the journey. It's 100% the journey.
And wow, that story is so powerful because it puts it in perspective. Please do not work for the 10 minutes you're on the summit because that's all it's going to be. It's going to be 10 minutes. But the journey is going to be what, 2 hours, 3 days, 7 months, 12 years? Enjoy the journey because literally the summit will just be 10 minutes. And you're either going to have to go up another one or come down. But that's not the point. The point isn't the 10 minutes.
Right, right. It's who do you empower and who are you on the day to day basis in that thing. And I think that in my book, I talk about committing to the commitment. Once you commit to the commitment, now you're no longer wrestling with, do I continue to climb this mountain or not? You're climbing that mountain. Now all your energy gets to be, who do I empower? How do I make this fun? What do I get to experience myself doing? And that changes the entire game. And so then when you get to the summit, you have a million stories that you can recall and reflect back on that made that pursuit worthwhile.
Mm. Well, and let's just talk like taking this like actual event that just happened. I'm sure that if you would have chosen to say no to your team and yes to yourself or yes to the mountain, you would have gotten to the top for the 10 minutes by yourself in isolation. But the fact that you turned around and went down the mountain with your team, you experienced connection, trust, intimacy, network, collaboration. Like, on Mount Everest about team building and all of that. So I want them to use your case study now in the master's degrees because there's so many significant lessons to learn from this.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, it's been so fun to get to know you better, to see the environments that you're creating for those of us that need to be seen and just need a chance to recharge and decide how we're going to contribute to society. So, thank you for being the empath that you are and stepping into that and creating this for all of us to experience. So, how do people find you? And if they're listening, like, man, this is exactly what I'm looking for, how do they connect?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways. One is you can you can listen to the After Success podcast. You can go onto the lastmastermind.com and look at the description of the room, and you can get on my calendar from there. Me, Jen.